All right, good afternoon, everyone. So this is a session on curb your insecurity with HTTP. Hopefully, we're going to give you some good tips for a secure cluster, especially with Spark. And so let's just introduce ourselves. My name is Ansel McBarnett. I'm a senior solutions engineer at Hortonworks, operating in the Northeast region within Pennsylvania. I've been working with Hadoop for quite a while. But recently, a lot of my clients, especially are within the healthcare arena, and many times one of their first requirements involves securing a cluster for obvious reasons. So here you see my contact information. I mentioned I love cricket. For those who like cricket, there's a song that's been stuck in my head called Champion, DJ Bravo, so you could tell where I'm originally from, for those who could pick that up.
Hey guys, it's Pardeep. I've been in space for 4+ years, working with Fortune 500 customers, helping them set up, install, secure Hadoop clusters. I work with Hortonworks Professional Services. And like Ansel, he comes from Kenya, I come from India, and India has cricket as a religion, right? So I love it. I love Hadoop, cricket, and Kerberos.
What a combination. All right, so let's go straight into it. We want to play a small video so you can get a sense of what we mean by securing the entire cluster. Some of this might be elementary to you guys, but hopefully this will be helpful.
You've built your first Apache Hadoop cluster, and now your focus is to protect the data stored here. This can be done in 4 steps. The first step is to implement Kerberos, which is like issuing passports to your Hadoop users to establish their true identity. The next step is to deploy Apache Ranger. Ranger's centralized interface defines and enforces access policies. It's like issuing different types of visas, allowing your users to access various parts of your data ecosystem and control what they can do. The third step is to implement Apache Knox, which is your centralized gateway to your Hadoop cluster. Knox validates your users' passports and visas before letting them in the system. The final step is to encrypt the data or make it unreadable without a key while it is flowing through the network or stored on disk in Hadoop. This is accomplished through transparent data encryption in HDFS and Ranger KMS. All the capabilities required to protect your data in Hadoop are built into the Hortonworks data platform.
All right, so that's a very quick snapshot of how do you implement security within the Hortonworks data platform. We're going to go through this in some level of detail. It's a comprehensive approach to security. A number of us think that perhaps security may have some gaps. Security may not be truly realized within the Hadoop platform, but that's no longer the case. We would take a look all the way from administration and using a single pane of glass to administrate a cluster, to authentication, authorization, audit, data protection, the common elements that you are all well aware of within security. And so if you want to look at it from a different point of view, this is what we will call the rings of security. At the outer level, you will have a perimeter level security. You will have network security with firewalls. And then many times when I go to client sites, one of the first things they ask for, give me a list of ports in which I can secure my cluster, open firewalls. And I do give them that list, but you understand that's quite an undertaking. You cannot depend on poking and opening ports for firewall. Yet, we do have a gateway called Apache Knox, which Pradeep is going to go through at length. But within that, not only you have the network security, you should also have authentication. I'm going to make a case why Kerberos is very important. A lot of times we waffle, do we really need Kerberos to secure a cluster? Maybe we could get away from it. And yes, there is an option where you can secure the cluster without Kerberos, but we're going to make a case where Kerberos is absolutely necessary.
Let's be frank, Kerberos is necessary evil. Let's do it.
It's a necessary evil. So beyond authentication, there's authorization audit. This is where Apache Ranger comes in. It's a single pane of glass, open source tool, in which you can put up authorization policies for not just a single cluster, but multiple clusters. And lastly, for data encryption. Encryption at rest, as well as data in motion. So we're going to talk about transparent data encryption altogether. So you guys are ready? You want to begin fully? So as Pradeep just said, he maybe put this, Kerberos is a necessary evil. Just do it.
That's why I love it.
So let's get a sense. Here's a quick little snippet why it's necessary. So I'm logged in as HDFS. All right, I'm going to see if I can access certain files within the HDFS folder. So look, I'm going to list a directory, my user directory. As HDFS, you expect to see everything. No big deal in that. Let's look into my secret administrative folder, my HDFS folder. I see there's a password file there. Great, I'm happy. As I'm admin, I can do that. Well, let's look into the proverbial demo user called demo. Every good demo has to have a demo user. So I log in my demo user. Guess what? It's highly secured. My password, it could be demo. Can I access the files within the HDFS folder? Can I see that password file? You expect to be denied, right? How many of you think you'll be denied? Right, you should be denied, okay? Great, I am denied. So what if I put a variable, look at that variable, export Hadoop underscore username. I can spoof as a super user with just that export variable, and I can see it. Without Kerberos, there really is no security. So just one quick variable, and I can spoof it. So it's completely unsecure.
So if you're not secure and people watching it, beware next time.
Yeah, beware. Even if you put LDAP in place without Kerberos or any other mechanism. So Kerberos is like, as the demo put it, it's like your passport. You have your ticket, you travel here, you need to come to a passport. Some of you came out of the country. It's needed. Yeah, you have different types of authorities in which to validate your ticket. You can do it through MIT, Active Directory, or custom. Here it goes through where a REM is set up, in this case, maxsecure.com. I call it like, secure in your own country, having a country in which you issue tickets, your own passports. And this is through the Ambari wizard, as you can see here. Yeah, this is one of the tips I wanted to recommend, whether you do it automated, in an automated fashion. I'm just going to play again. Whether it's through an automated fashion or whether you do it in a customized as you manage it manually, please download that CSV file. Okay? That's your documentation. That's your thing that you can refer to back if we have to do anything manually. So that's one of the tips I would give here.
Yeah, but at the same time, what we see is that if you do it manually, there are immense problems which enterprises get in. See, stack is big. There will be more components coming in, nodes being removed, nodes being added. You mess up the key tabs, the service is gone, all those issues, right? Yep. So as long as it's possible, try to automate, create a principal, give it to Ambari with admin privileges on that container. It takes care of you, makes your life easy.
And one of the things I've found in my looking at customers, especially with Active Directory, we partner with a company called Centrify. They've done wonders in handling the trust stores, multiple trust stores across multiple clusters. So Centrify is a good partner for this. Yeah,
so the idea is you have MIT KDC, you can use MIT KDC. You have existing AD, every enterprise has, Microsoft has that presence, right? So you can use that. If you have Centrify, you can use that. You can use any AD to connect to Hadoop directly. So do it.
So once you've enabled Kerberos, let's see what will happen with respect to the same scenario. Can I go back in as a demo user and access that directory? So here again, once again, you would see that I'm going to try to spoof now with Kerberos on. So obviously, if I log in as HDFS, I present my passport at the TSA line. Okay, it allows me in. That's a key in it. Okay, it got me in. I'm able to now go in and list my directory. It should be fine. I have access to it. I'm the owner, user. I presented my credentials. I should be good to go. So as you can see momentarily, great. Let's see if I can do that now as the demo user. And so I'm going to log in as a demo user. I need to also present my ticket, or do a key in it, so I can be assured that this is who I am really at. It compares my face with what is there in the passport. Well, of course, it's basically just a key in it. I'm using an analogy. And let me now go and introspect that directory. I can see the user directory. So let's see if I can go further. And I see the HDFS as a directory. I want to inspect what's in there. Obviously, I was denied. No big deal. It was denied before. If you recall, I did an export of a variable to spoof it. Let's see if I can do that again. And once someone has done this, you know that this allowed me access previously into that password file. Can I do so now that Kerberos is on? Let's look at it. No, I'm also denied. Okay? So spoofing is curtailed while Kerberos tickets are enabled. Here I'm looking to see, can I take the HDFS ticket and spoof it? Nope, I cannot. So that's the security with and without Kerberos. Okay? So let's move on to Apache Ranger. Once you have a passport, which has your digital encoded, you have your ticket, your boarding pass. Now, as you're about to enter a country, certain countries, you need a visa. You need something to authorize you to that place. And that's where Apache Ranger comes in. Apache Ranger is a single pane of glass where you can go in and set up security policies for the various services and components within the Hadoop platform. Here are the various components. You see HDFS, HBase, Hive, Storm, Kafka, Nox, Yarn, Solar, and it can be custom. You can add actually additional services here. Here's an example where, from an auditing perspective, and you see Spark there, and we will talk about it because maybe you may have noticed you didn't see Spark initially as part of one of the services. We're going to address that. But if I want to look at all the services that have been denied, there it is in my audit plane. You can also use Solar, okay, with Kibana or Kibana dashboards or what have you. You can also use that to search for all the security events. So this is just a quick, a quick look at what is available within Apache Ranger. Let's go into another demo now where I have enabled Ranger. I want to look at how do I authorize for HDFS files. So I'm an HR user. I've set up an HR department. Here I'm going to be using, in this case, you'll be looking at the HDFS file view. And I've set up a staging location for both HR and legal. And this is best practice. You should set up staging. I've put in a couple of files within those directories. And I've tried to access the legal directory as HR. Obviously, I should be denied. Great. So I'm denied because I cannot access legal. But let's see if I can log in as a second HR within that department, HR2, and see if I can access the HR staging folders. So you would expect, because this is a staging area, a landing zone, where all the HR files will be located. So once I've done that, you realize I still don't have access as a second HR user into that staging area. So what I do is I go into Ranger, and I set up a policy to give access to everyone within an HR group. And this is an LDAP group. So Kerberos have set up my ticket. I've integrated with perhaps Active Directory or some LDAP. And I'm setting up a resource part, that same resource part that you saw me with data stage HR. And I'm given access to the HR staging folder. Who do I give it to? Well, I give it to an HR group, of which HR1 user, HR2 user that I try to log in, they both have access to. And in this demo, well, I'm giving admin group, although you may not want the admin users to see salaries of everyone else. So that might not have been a good idea. But here is someone, you give the permissions, perhaps read, write. And after doing so, then once you log in back into Ambari and the Ambari view, if I could type the password properly as HR2, once I log in and I go back, I should then be able to access the files that are designated for the landing area or staging area for HR. So you can see that's what it's possible. You do the same for every single department. So always build good practice to have a staging landing area for each department. I'm going to do the same for legal, because legal has its own staging area. I'm going to ensure that everyone within the legal department also has access to those folders that I've designated. And so that's a quick approach in setting up HDF file security and setting up policies within Apache Ranger. You would expect that once this is done, and I log in now as legal, once again, any legal user within that LDAP group for legal should be able to access files within their particular staging area. And of course, they should be denied access into the HDFS directory. So as you can see that momentarily, that's what's good. I can see my legal codes. And if I try to access the HR folder, then I'm denied. So that's a quick way in terms of demonstrating what you can do with the HDFS plugin within Ranger. Let's go quickly into the Hive. So I have files within the HR and legal. I want to create tables again, especially external tables. That's another best practice. You set up a landing zone. You may want to create external tables there. Here I'm logging into the Hive view, and I was denied, even though I have files there as HR. What I need to do then is go back into Ranger and create access, give access to those HR users the ability to create tables within a designated database, in this case, an HR database that my admin has set up for me. So here I am able to access all tables, all columns, okay, to HR. So not only have access to the files, but then I should be able to create tables and point, especially external tables, and point to locations to that staging area. Okay, so I've done that. I'm going to do that for legal also. And so let's see if I haven't done that, if I'm successful back in the Ambari Hive view, if I'm successful in actually creating a table, an external table, or to that location. And so once I try to execute this, you see I'm denied again. Okay, perplexing. I thought I've done everything I was supposed to do. Let's go back into Ranger again. Let's look at the audit. Why was I denied? When I searched for the particular resource, which in this case, my directory, and I searched for the result that I'm denied, okay, I can see that the reason I was denied is because the Hive user itself has been denied access to that HDFS folder. And this is because I've set up as impersonation. My actual users, even though I'm creating tables, under the covers, it's actually the Hive user that's running. So I need to go back to my HDFS policies, as you can see them, and add the Hive user there to give permission to access to those directories. And that's all important. So as best practice, you should set up Hive run as end user to be false, because you do want it to run as the Hive user under the covers. When that occurs, then I'm able to create the tables as appropriately. And once I execute, you would see that it is successful. I can create both tables as HR. I can look at the information therein. So what I have done is I have placed a staging area for both the HR and legal. And now I've given them the ability to create tables to point back to those locations, and I've authorized that at both levels with Apache Ranger. Okay? And so now it's completing, and that's the Hive plugin in action. So you've seen authentication, your passport given with Kerberos. You've seen your visas given, okay, with Ranger and the single pane of glass, and we've just demonstrated just both two components, HDFS and also a Hive. And so now we want to take a look at perhaps the other area, which is Apache Knox. But before we get to that, these are all the authorization, fine-grained access control that's accomplished. With HBase, you can go at the table, column, family level. You also, with Storm and Knox, you can access, give privileges for which IP addresses you're coming from. And so there are many others that we can't do within a 40-minute talk. But I encourage you to definitely, if you have not, please take a look at this. So let's look at Knox. And before I turn to Pradeep, I always call Knox the troll on the bridge. You know, someone before you get to the castle asks you the 3 questions, please. Once you answer, then it will allow you to let you in. So this is Knox.
Thanks, Ansel. I think he stole the thunder with Ranger and Knox. So going with Knox. Does it work?
Oh, the green.
OK. So moving on to Knox. So we have got multiple Hadoop REST APIs, which we use to access the Hadoop cluster services outside the cluster, right? And at the same time, we have the client nodes and edge nodes where people do SSH and run their jobs. So if you look at the multiple Hadoop REST APIs, we have got WebEdgeDFS, WebEdgeCat, Hive, HBase, Oozie for different operations. And it becomes really challenging because client must have knowledge of the Hadoop topology, right? And that keeps on changing. If you look at the big cluster implementations where there is 2,000 node or 1,500 node, you will have name nodes moving from one location to another, or resource manager moving here to there, right? So it becomes really challenging every time to deploy those clients back and have users connect to that, and you need to keep on changing, opening the ports and everything, right? So that's always a challenge. So what we were looking for as part of Knox is that we need a single gateway from where users can get an entry to different services in the cluster based on authentication and authorization, which Ansel just summarized, right? So what Knox is? So Knox was incubated and led by Hortonworks. It extends the reach of different Hadoop REST APIs. So what it provides is, it provides you single Hadoop access point for different services in the cluster. So if you want to reach Oozie, you want to reach WebEdgeDFS, or you want to reach WebEdgeCat, everything will go through Knox. So if you know where the Knox is and which port it is, you should be able to access different services, irrespective of how the topology behind the Knox is, right? And it eliminates your SSH edge node requirements, central API management. There's central audit control. If you are hitting Knox, getting access or denied, everything will be monitored and audited in Ranger from that specific service only. You don't have to look at so many audits being generated at a time for different services. Then there is single sign-on integration. You have LDAP and AD integration in place for Knox. So that's a brief summary about what Knox is. Now let's look at how Knox changes that. If you look at these kind of example ports and the UIs, if you have WebEdgeDFS, you have name node host 50070, WebEdgeCat 50111, then the host, Oozie, HBase, Hive, Yarn, different services, different hosts, different ports, right? It becomes difficult for the users to know, and it keeps on changing all the time. What Knox provides, which you can see on the left side, is that you have a Knox behind a load balancer if you have multiple Knox, of course, right? And then you have the same port, 8443, which is obviously, which can be changed, right? And it provides you, by default, SSL in there. So basically, even if you don't have your all REST APIs in the cluster enabled for encryption using SSL, still you can have SSL in place using Knox. So you can basically shut down the other ports on the other services and have every user go to access the cluster services using Knox. So that provides a single layer for that. This is a typical very high-level drill down into how Knox works. You can see a REST client, which sends a request to the load balancer depending on multiple Knox gateways, right? And then it can access multiple Hadoop clusters depending on which services you are calling from. You don't need to have basically one Knox for each cluster. You can have basically one set of Knox behind a load balancer going to multiple clusters, right? So that provides you basically feasibility to not have your users and dev guys who are accessing the cluster travel with all the time changing ports and the hosts. Now this is most interesting topic, and this has been one of the most common impediment in terms of Hadoop adoption in healthcare sector or in financial sector, because we have got a lot of PCI data or compliance data, right? And if there is no data encryption or data protection available in place, that completely boils down all the advantages which Hadoop provides, right? And this is what we needed for a long time, and fortunately we have in place with Hadoop now, and that's where we are seeing more and more of our healthcare customers and financial customers adopting Hadoop due to the benefits and due to the advantages and the features we have for data protection in place. So there are two ways where we need to care about data protection, right? One is that when the data is moving over the wire between the nodes or to your BI applications, let's say someone accessing cluster Hive from Tableau, right? So data is moving over the network, and so is between MapReduce, shuffle face, and all between the nodes, right? So that's data encryption over transmission, right? So you have to encrypt data as it moves. The other one is data should also be encrypted based on what kind of requirement you have, based on what kind of data you have, right? At the disk or at the storage level, directory level, or the volume level, right? So HDFS has its native encryption called transparent data encryption, TDE, which you can use, or you can use third-party commercial tools which are partnered with us, Protegrity, Voltage, Volumetric, and all, which can be used here. So this is a point of communication when you have data moving over the cluster between the wire, right? So you have WebHDFS, you have data transfer protocols, RPC, JDBC, ODBC connections, right? So you can encrypt all those, like you can use SSL for your endpoints. All those endpoints should be enabled for SSL, and between the nodes as well. Then you can define your data transfer protocol mechanism, what kind of encryption you want to have, and then you can encrypt your JDBC, ODBC drivers. This talks about SDFS encryption. So in your SDFS structure, right, so you will have some data which is PII, right, or which needs to be encrypted for compliance purposes. So you can encrypt that using encryption zones in HDFS TDE, or you can use third-party commercial tools which are non-native to Hadoop, right? Like Voltage has been one of our good partners for the KMS services, key management service. You can use Apache Ranger KMS, which is inbuilt in Ranger for key management services for SDFS TDE. And then there are other providers like Protegrity, which can be used. And you have to be very mindful of the fact that it's not encryption, that you shouldn't encrypt everything, right? There are ways you just encrypt what you need to encrypt, because there will be performance hit. So when you're defining that what needs to be encrypted, be very careful about that. And that's why you have to be very intelligently defining encryption zones for TDE.
All right.
So Ansel is back again with cool stuff.
Oops.
Demo. Sorry
about that. So let's go to a demonstration. Let's go to a demonstration of this. So yeah, we're going to log in as the HR user. And we're going to create a directory for handling secure data. So once again, you're going to create a secure area. So this is just create a secure folder within Ambari as part of the files view. One for HR and also one for legal. So we have two secure areas. Once we created those secure areas, okay, and legal is now going to be created. Once we go to create those secure areas, we're going to go into Apache Ranger momentarily. This is Apache Ranger, and create the encryption keys, the encryption zone keys in particular, so that we could secure the content within those directories. So once you have set up the KMS, the key management store, this is a demonstration of the key management store within Ranger. We are creating a new key, an HR key. Maybe enter the description, just the key access for HR secure data, for securing HR data. We create one key for HR, and perhaps another key for legal. Okay, as you can see, the legal key is being created. Once we have that now, the next task is associating each key with its particular encryption zone. An encryption zone is just a folder within HDFS that we are securing. So first, since it's a Kerberos platform, we get our HDFS ticket. And then we create an encryption zone, one for HR, as you can see demonstrated. We're going to create another for legal using the keys we presented. And let's verify the zones have been created. As you can see, the zones are created with its appropriate key. Once we have done that, let's create a file, an HR file, I'm going to copy that file now into our HR secure. And once it's copied, it should be encrypted. But there is an error. Why is there an error? OK, so let's investigate. So we see that the user is not allowed to do something within that encryption zone. So not only we need to apply the key, but we need to go in and create a policy so that any users within HR or legal should have access to that key. So that's important. So I'm going to give any access to the HR key. In this case, the HR LDAP group should have access to decrypt as well as encrypt within that encryption zone. And that's what you are seeing being demonstrated here. Once that's accomplished, and you do that not only for the HR group, but also similarly for our demo for the legal group, once you're able to do so, then I should be able to log in as any of the HR users and be able now to copy files that I want to secure within this HR secure area, which, as you can see, is successful this time, both for HR and for legal. What if then I wanted to take a look and do a cut to that file? I'm able to do so because I'm HR, and as legal, if I'm legal trying to do the same at the HR secure level, I'm denied. If I'm trying to do that as HDFS, okay, can the super user HDFS access data into that secure area? Well, they're able to read, but what they will get is an encrypted output. So they're not able to go through the back door to look at that data. Right? As you can tell, if I try to delete the data, it doesn't allow you to delete. Once you're in an encryption, once you put a file in an encryption zone, deletion is not allowed unless you skip trash. Okay? So you need to say skip trash because it doesn't make sense deleting something and someone could access it in the trash area. So you have to be careful that if you put something in the encryption zone and you want to delete it, it's gone forever. And that's what is being demonstrated here. Okay?
Thanks, Anshul. Hello.
Yeah.
So shit happens, but I got DR in place. OK, so we have got 8 minutes. So I'll quickly walk you through securing Spark deployments. This Spark is hot kid on the block. People are realizing its benefits, right? But security has always been concerned around Spark. That how secure it is. Can we really put it in production and all the stuff? So Spark, coming back to the same pillars which Ansel talked about earlier, authentication, authorization, audits, and everything, right? So we'll go through those pillars. So you can look at Spark authentication, right? So I probably don't need mic, right? OK, so here you got the user, right? He's knitting and he's getting Spark service ticket to submit the Spark job. Then that goes to Spark application master. It goes to the Yarn containers, and the delegation for the Kerberos happens at the Yarn or the SDFS level, where user can get authenticated that if he has permission to run a job on Yarn, or if he has access SDFS data, right? And on the leftmost side, you can see the 3-mouth dog. That means you need Kerberos.
And just to be clear, it's available on a Yarn-enabled or Yarn mode cluster. So you need to run Spark on Yarn mode to have this occur.
Now this is the quick slide on Spark authorization. You have John Joy submitting a job from his desktop, probably from Tableau. Use Spark service. He submits a Spark job using Spark service ticket, goes to Yarn cluster. Then it's the Ranger, which Ansel earlier demoed, right? That controls the ECL. That can this user launch a job? Now that will be defined by the Yarn policy. If in Yarn the user is not allowed to run a job, that means he will not be able to run a Spark job. In the same side, the other piece is the data, right? So you have the process being authenticated. The other one is the data. So if the user has read permission, write permission, or execute permission on SDFS data, right? And accordingly, he will get privileges to run a Spark job on the SDFS data. So you have got data as well as process secured in Spark, as long as it's running on Yarn or on SDFS. The other part of the puzzle is channel encryption, right? So when the data moves between different Spark executors. So you can encrypt your shuffle data, which of course leverages yarn-based SSL. For RPC, you can set this property, Spark authenticate equal to true. That will leverage yarn to distribute secret key across all the nodes in the cluster. Then you can set this property, enable SSL encryption for SSL enablement on shuffle block transfer. Read-write data depends on data source. If you have SDFS encryption in place, so your data is of course encrypted. Then broadcast file download, you can set SSL enable equal to true to ensure that your data, when it is transferred over the wire, is encrypted. There are some gotchas with Spark security currently, and which our customers face, which people in the field face. And one of those is when client submits a job using Spark Private Thrift Server, it doesn't do the identity propagation. So if you have a user coming from Tableau using Thrift Server, right, running a Spark job, the propagation doesn't happen. Due to that, authentication is failed. So you can't like run a job as John Joy and then have authentication taking place using Tableau. That's the current right now gap there. And that reduces the whole security concept in Spark at this point of time. And we are getting that addressed as part of this Jira Spark 5.15.9 feature. So we are looking at Spark early times in the next couple of months to get that fixed. And then we have a talk in room 210A after this talk where our Hortonworks colleague will talk about security in Spark and Hive and how is that feature issue going to get addressed. Then the next one is Spark HBase with Kerberos. It used to be issue earlier. Now that issue is fixed since Spark 1.4. Spark streaming with Kafka, with Kerberos, with SSL. That issue has been fixed in SDP 2.4x starting now. And for Spark jobs running more than 72 hours, that is basically long-running Spark jobs. The issue was that Kerberos ticket was not being renewed. So you have renewed lifetime of 7 days, right, for the default Kerberos tickets. And if you have long-running jobs, that will not get auto-renewal of the ticket, resulting into this job's failure. So that's resolved in starting Spark 1.5+.
And before we entertain questions, just to be clear, if you do want to take advantage of Spark and Spark security, you absolutely should be on HTTP 2.4.2 and above. So you definitely need to take advantage of that, to take advantage of all the features within Spark and security. So that's it. That's the security Spark.
Questions? Yes, please.
So let's say I want to run Kafka in my cluster. And but this is really kind of two questions. So first, is Kafka supported by Knox?
No, Kafka is not supported by Knox at this point of time.
And so something I've been struggling with is, let's say there's sensors that exist outside of our network, and we want to be able to hand data into HDFS. What would be the way to reverse that securely?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. So if you look at the Kafka ACLs, right? So what will happen is that at Kafka ACL, you can go to Ranger, right? You can define your Kafka policy and say that these are the only endpoints which can write data to SDFS, right? These are the ports and these are the host names, so that you have only the trusted points writing data to SDFS. Then on SDFS level, you define the policy to say that this is the user which is running the Kafka job can write, read, or do whatever the activity you want that user to perform in that particular SDFS directory. So using that, you basically control both the endpoints in Kafka and SDFS.
And depends on the ACLs, you may have
Yes.
to go and drop down to the Zookeeper ACLs. Depends on what you're doing per topic for Kafka. So it's spread between the Kafka ACLs.
Yeah, but that will be very limited work. I don't see that happening. It used to be an issue in earlier, but now that you don't have to play with GKCLI a lot.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Yeah, okay.
So given your guys' experience in the field and with customers, how often do you see a successful migration from a non-Kerberos implementation to keep what they've got and move to a Kerberos implementation?
That's a very good question. So we see that as in field a lot, right? So what has happened in past 2 years, I'm saying is that we have more and more customers doing pilots on security, and that's phased-wise approach, right? We don't want them to like go big bang with all the security components and then just overdone themselves, right? So we are seeing more and more customers first enabling Kerberos right now, or enabling different parts of security based on what they need, right? It's a phase-wise approach. We are seeing customers moving from MIT KDC, doing a one-way trust to directly to existing Active Directory, right? Then coming to the migration, like let's say other distributions to Hortonworks, right? Even in that case, what we are saying is that so when we take migrations, right, it's usually like you take it as is. You don't want to change too many things at a time, right? Make sure that what worked here works here as well, right? And then enable extra features like security and different parts and layers around that. And we are seeing that pretty often, and most of those are very successful. In fact, we have got now more and more healthcare customers coming on and doing really nice stuff with master patient data, right? With the financial data in healthcare, and that's really awesome to see.
Okay. All right.
And we have Hortonworks University security training.
That's a good point.
That's a very good point.
So we do have security. For those who didn't hear, please definitely come to Hortonworks University. We have security training. It's a must. We take you through 5 days of this content. So 3 days? 3 days. Oh, that was right. You wrote it. All right, 3 days of that content.
And
maybe I took it in 5 days.
Security training is there. Besides that, Ansel is there, and we all are there in Hortonworks Community Connection. Be there. If you have any question, ask those questions there. If not me, not he, anybody will be able to answer your questions very quickly. We have seen significant contribution from the community itself on Hortonworks community, not only from Hortonworks.
All right. Well, guys, our time is up. Thank you very much.